This is Carolina Ghost Towns, a podcast about the vanished towns and lost communities in South Carolina, North Carolina, and maybe a few other places. I'm your host, Tom Taylor. Just a reminder that this is the last episode before I take a summer break. Carolina Ghost Towns will be taking a short break for the months of July and August. I'll be back in September with more Carolina and Southern ghost towns.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Okay, I admit that I was a weird teenager. I was terrible at sports, but I loved to read. I was a science fiction fan from my first encounter with the original run of Star Trek in the 1960s. I loved the idea of an advanced society driven by high morals and technology. Eventually, I stumbled upon Sir Thomas More's Utopia and Francis Bacon's The New Atlantis, and I read both of them. I now had a framework and terminology for this type of society. Of course, the word utopia itself is a play on words. According to Wikipedia, which wasn't around when I was reading these works, utopia is derived from the Greek prefix eu, meaning not, and topos, meaning place. The name literally means nowhere. In so many of the science fiction stories I read, if there was a society portrayed as a utopia, there was always something wrong. There might be some natural flaw or outside force that doomed the society, or there was an exploited population that supported the society that eventually revolted. Good stories need conflict, and a perfect society would be, quite frankly, boring. One of my other favorite genres was the Arthurian legends. I read Howard Pyle's stories, and later the Once and Future King and Mary Stuart novels. Camelot was another type of utopia, and even knowing the ending that had to come, I was always sad when it did come.
I am in haste. Who lives in that castle?
No one lives there.
Then who is your lord?
We don't have a lord.
What? I told you, we're an anarcho-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week.
Yes.
But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting.
Yes, I see.
By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs.
Be quiet.
But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more...
Be quiet. I order you to be quiet.
Despite a high probability of failure, that didn't prevent some groups from trying to create a utopia in the real world. Across the U.S., there have been attempts to build utopia, from cultish religious enclaves to self-sustaining intentional communities. These attempts don't have a great track record. Like Camelot, something seems to come up that disrupts the community. Last week, we heard about the Kingdom of Happyland and how they tried to build their version of an African kingdom in North Carolina. This week, we look at the community of Happyville in Aiken County, South Carolina. This community was established by a group of Jewish immigrants, hoping to carve out their perfect society in communal living. In 1907, South Carolina established the Department of Agriculture, Commerce, and immigration. E.J. Watson was the first commissioner, and his goal was to promote South Carolina as the, quote, Garden of America. The goal of the commission was to attract Eastern European immigrants who wanted to work on farms in the state. The commission published several handbooks for the state. The Handbook of South Carolina, Resources, Institutions, and Industries of the State was subtitled, A Summary of the Statistics of Agriculture, Manufactures, Geography, Climate, Geology, and Physiography, Minerals and Mining, Education, Transportation, Commerce, Government, etc., etc. Now, I've used this publication several times in researching the various towns of South Carolina, and the title is a mouthful. The motives weren't altogether altruistic. This was during the time of Jim Crow in South Carolina. Part of the plan was to replace black farm workers with, quote, more desirable, close quote, European workers. In 1997, Dale Rosenberg interviewed the late Rose Rudnick Rubin as part of the Jewish Heritage Collection for the College of Charleston. Rose Rubin described some of this racial motivation for attracting Jewish settlers to the state.
Governor Duncan Clinch Haywood, who was having a time with this land that was undeveloped, decided with the advisors. They were dissatisfied with the black help. They said they were, quote unquote, lazy. So they said they believed that these Russian Jews, which then was owned by Russia, that these Russian Jews, as Jews are wont to do, you know, work and succeed and so on, would be better workers if they could get them down here.
The commission even set up an office on Wall Street in New York to recruit Russian Jews. Quote, several thousand Jewish immigrants took South Carolina's Department of Agriculture, Commerce, and Immigration at its word, greatly augmenting the state's Jewish population in the process. While most settled in Charleston and Columbia, or in the small towns that peppered the region, close quote, according to the Jewish website Forward. Aiken had already become a center of the Jewish diaspora. According to the website for the Institute of Southern Jewish Life, quote, diagnosed with tuberculosis, Harris L. Pollier, accompanied by his wife and his brother, Morris, settled in Aiken in the early 1890s on the recommendation of his doctor. The Pollier brothers opened dry goods stores and encouraged their brother-in-law, Benedict M. Saraski, to join them. B.M. arrived in the mid-1890s and peddled, carrying an English-Russian dictionary with him until the Polliers placed him in charge of one of their stores. Just after the turn of the century, 4 more Saraski brothers and a sister left their hometown of Gniezno, Poland, and followed B.M. to Paradise, close quote. Hiram Saraski told his wife Friedel that Aiken was, quote, a place you could only dream of in Europe, close quote. Watson's Garden of America campaign, along with the established Jewish community and the success of the Saraski family in Aiken, attracted the attention of socialist Charles Weintraub. He believed that, quote, poor land improved was the best land that brings forth the best results under proper cultivation, close quote. Weintraub purchased the Sheffield plantation in Montmorency near Aiken. He and 10 Jewish settlers moved there in December 1905, determined to establish a successful socialist farming colony. The state newspaper reported on the new colony, complete with the racist motivations for attracting the Jewish settlers.
Deal closed for purchase of the Phelps tract of land. Settlers are soon to come. Small farmers who won't care if the Negro does not want to work. Aiken County has landed one of Commissioner Watson's colonies. Mr. Watson came to Aiken last week accompanied by Charles Weintraub and Morris Letterman of New York. Mr. Weintraub is president of the Incorporative Farming Association, an association of Polish immigrants who have abandoned their former homes in the land of the Tsar and are now seeking a location in the land of the free in which to pursue their peaceful avocation. Mr. Watson has had several locations for colonies offered to him in different sections of Aiken County. Down near Oakwood and Montmorency are some of the best lands in the county. The greater part of this section has heretofore been undeveloped. What of it has been at all attempted has yielded good returns in fruit, stock, and dairy products.
Soon afterwards, 15 more families joined the colony. As for their country of origin, the local papers seemed confused. Weintraub was born in Russia, but local news outlets referred to the settlers alternately as Polish, Hungarian, or Russian. Most likely, some of the settlers came from each of these regions. In 1906, the state newspaper reported that Weintraub purchased the former Sheffield Phelps plantation near Montmorency.
All the members of the Montmorency colony will be either Russian or Polish settlers, the president being Charles Weintraub, a Russian who has been in this country only about 6 months. A large portion of them have not been residents of America sufficiently long to speak English intelligently. With the Montmorency land purchase went a full equipment, including mules, farm implements, etc. The colonists will engage in the raising of truck, fruit, poultry, and diversified agriculture. They will be the first colony in the South to ship truck and poultry directly to the eastern markets without coming in contact with the expensive middleman. They expect to dispose of their products through extensive acquaintances and connections in these large cities.
Weintraub had ambitious plans for the colony. They built several houses, planted cotton and peach trees, and built a cotton gin and sawmill. There were plans for a school and other buildings to support the community. In 1982, Marcia Savin interviewed her uncle Al Rothman, who lived in Happyville. Quote, "We had 2,300 acres between a village, Montmorency, and Aiken, South Carolina. We grew watermelon, cotton, corn, even grapes. Had our own pond, let the water out once a year. We'd walk in and pick up catfish, pike, sunfish, smelt, and have a fish fry. We dammed the stream to power our cotton gin and sawmill. Lots of trees, lumber to sell. It was called Happyville." Close quote. Things didn't work out so well for that first year, though. The farm implements provided for the colony were substandard by all accounts. In 1906, the weather was harsher than expected, and after a sudden frost and heavy rain, the crops failed. Unperturbed, Weintraub purchased more equipment and started a publicity campaign for the colony. Despite the setbacks, in 1907, local news headlines proclaimed, "Aiken Colony is a success."
The cooperative colony in Aiken County is one of the best in the country, remarked Charles Weintraub, who is one of the leaders of the Happyville colony near Montmorency. Mr. Weintraub was in Columbia yesterday for the purpose of buying some machinery for the colony, and while here called on Commissioner Watson and related some of the plans. Happyville colony is remarkable in many respects. From reports of those who have visited it, the gathering is almost socialist in idea, and it has been successful from the start. A little over a year ago, 3 families of Russian Jews purchased 2,200 acres of land in Aiken County. None of the colony knew anything of farming, and Mr. Weintraub himself was a piano polisher in St. Petersburg before coming to America. With the aid of an expert from the United States Department of Agriculture, instruction was given in the development of the land, and in the meantime the lands were cleared and the timber sold, thus bringing in enough money to keep the members of the colony from spending their savings. Afterwards, a number of families joined the colony, and it now numbers 54 people, with others to arrive shortly.
That rosy assessment was not quite accurate. According to Rose Rubin,
So he and others got this Mr. Watson, whom they set up as the head of the thing, and they opened an office actually in New York. And he contacted Jews there, and the word got to these. So they talked with him. He assured them that they were going to get very fertile, good land. They would have all the implements they needed to work with, the best, and that they would get advice and guidance from the people in South Carolina and, of course, in Aiken. So they thought, well, this has answered our dreams. And they came down. They scraped together some money, and they came down. Well, when they got there, they were right away disappointed in the land. It was hard and rocky, and they couldn't get a darn thing to grow on it. And then the implements were not what they expected and not what they needed. And the granddaughter of one of them has told me that her grandmother told her they didn't even have cooking utensils, and they did it over big fires, in the yard and so on. But anyway, they tried hard, but the first winter was one of the most severe winters ever experienced in Aiken. So not only they couldn't plant and get anything to grow on their lousy land, even the Christian neighbors who had had good crops, they had a horrible time. And they actually tried very hard to help these Jewish settlers. But it was just no go. So they lost money the first year. They came with a little money. And then the second year, the same thing happened again, and they were devastated. So then each one started blaming something else or each other. And there was terrible dissension within the group. So they decided the only thing to do, cut the losses and leave. Just take whatever they could get out of it.
The same newspapers that just a year earlier had lauded Happyville, in 1908, reported on the demise of the colony. The Bamberg Herald reported the following.
Happyville colony in Aiken has come to grief. The colony of Hungarian or Russian Jews settled upon the tract of poor land near Montmorency several years ago and misnamed the Happyville colony has come to grief, which appeared inevitable to everyone who knew the conditions. These Jews had no experience in agriculture in Europe, and of course still less understood anything about agricultural methods in South Carolina. They were put on land which is so poor that they could not really make a living off of it. The result is reported to be a final collapse of the whole scheme.
While the papers seemed to delight in exposing the agricultural inexperience of the colony, there were other financial matters that played into the collapse of the colony. The group had gone into debt to finance construction of a sawmill and cotton gin. During that same time, Montmorency farmers had constructed a rival ginning operation nearby. With a second year of crop failure and the financial failure and debt from the failed cotton gin, that proved just too much for the colony. The land was sold off, and the settlers moved to Aiken and other parts of the state. The colony of Happyville was abandoned. The Jewish immigrants had been brought in for racial reasons. During an era of Jim Crow, the state wanted to minimize the influence of the black population and thought that the Jews would accomplish this. The irony is that the colonists came under the same type of racial intimidation because they treated the blacks with respect. The late Al Rothman described this in his interview. Quote, "Some of the farmers made it so terrible for us. Couldn't ship our lumber. No flat cars, no shipping, because of how we treated the coloreds. We called them Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones, when we'd go to town, we'd get flour or chewing tobacco that they needed. That was one reason we had to leave." Close quote. Even before Happyville was established, there were anti-Semitic undercurrents. Abraham Saraski, one of the Saraski brothers mentioned earlier, was murdered in 1903 by an anti-Semitic farmer while he was out peddling his wares in the countryside. The farmer claimed that he was, quote, "defending his wife's honor," close quote, and he was acquitted. There was one witness who testified that the murder was premeditated and that the farmer had made anti-Semitic statements, as well as stating his intention to kill Saraski. Since the witness was a black woman, her testimony was mostly dismissed. Despite these trials, the Jewish population of Aiken County was able to continue with their culture. The Adath Yeshurun congregation, founded by fewer than 24 families, was incorporated in 1921. As for the community of Happyville, nothing remains. There's a wooded area with a small pond and some older buildings now on private property. In 2023, Jewish filmmaker Joel Tauber produced a short documentary entitled The Sharing Project. Joel used the Happyville colony's philosophy as a basis for his exploration of various concepts of sharing. As part of the film, he visited the Happyville site. While Tauber doesn't delve deeply into the history of the area, the documentary features scenes from the site as a background for the film. I really wanted to see if there was anything on site to commemorate the colony. Happyville hasn't been forgotten, but there seem to be no historical markers. That's disappointing, and I hope I'm wrong about that. Now, since recording that last paragraph, I made a kayaking trip down to the Edisto River. A couple of my kayaking companions were from the town of Montmarcini, and when I asked them about it, they said that they had seen at least a couple of signs that indicated something about Happyville, if not actual historical markers. Now, I've not been able to confirm this, and the historical marker database doesn't have anything listed. Maybe I'll have to make a trip down there and check this out for myself. In the end, the colony of Happyville only lasted a fraction of the time that the kingdom of Happy Land did. Both wanted to set up communal societies for their displaced groups, but ultimately, neither utopia survived. That's it for this episode of Carolina Ghost Towns. I'll provide links to Joel Tauber's film, Rose Rubin's interview, and other resources I used in this episode in the show notes. Also, just a reminder that I'll be taking a few weeks off from the show. I'm hoping to get back around mid-September with new ghost towns and lost communities. Thanks for listening.
Southern ghost town, we found a story untold. In the shadows of the past, we unravel, secrets unfold. With each step we take, we journey back in time. In this southern ghost town, we leave our footprints behind.
Thanks for listening. The opening music was composed by Lex FM with additional music from Pixabay. The song Southern Ghost Town was generated by Suno AI. All other music was composed and recorded by me, Tom Taylor. Carolina Ghost Towns is a part of the Random Connections empire It's pretty much a one-man show, so I wear all the hats, including producer, writer, researcher, sound engineer, publicist, and bartender. If you like the show, please subscribe on your favorite pod venue and be sure to give us feedback. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for the show, you can reach me at carolinaghosttownspod@gmail.com. For more information and show notes, visit randomconnections.com. Thank you.
In this southern ghost town, we found a story untold. In the shadows of the past, we unravel, secrets unfold. With each step we take, we journey back in time. In this southern ghost town, we leave our footprints behind.